On the issue of Iran, President Trump spoke from Air Force One on Monday, indicating the Iranians requested to meet following the 13-day U.S. bombing campaign. Axios reports that President Trump says he is ready for strong military action if talks fail. The president appeared optimistic about the possibility of a deal, as reports indicate Oman presented a proposal to Iran that would open the Strait of Hormuz. From July 24th to the 26th, 29 vessels passed through this critical waterway, according to international shipping data. President Trump says you can't bribe Iran to keep the strait open.
No, you can't bribe them. You got to beat them, and we're beating the hell out of them. But we'll see how it turns out. Right now, they have very friendly negotiations going on.
Here in Israel, the IDF says they shot down an incoming drone today along the border with Jordan, likely launched by an Iran-backed Iraqi Shia militia group. Guys?
Trey, I don't get it. We hear there's friendly negotiations going on, but is Iran saying they're not talking at all? That they'll just keep a ceasefire going as long as we don't hit them. So what are you hearing?
What's fascinating about the Iranians is they often say one thing publicly and then something else at the negotiating table. And we have seen this for the past several months. Iran will make these public statements saying they're not speaking with the Americans. And then some of their negotiators will actually pick up the phone and call President Trump directly, asking him to stop the bombing. And it gives you a sense of the domestic audience that they are playing to when they make these statements. Oftentimes, they're coming directly from the foreign ministry spokesperson. But moving forward, it will be critical to see if the Trump administration is able to get together a verifiable agreement with the Iranians that not just opens the Strait of Hormuz and stops the threats against international shipping lanes, but also addresses the early steps of negotiations as it relates to the country's nuclear program. When we zoom out here, there is an ongoing U.S. military buildup across the region, and that's because President Trump has seen this before and understands that while the Iranians may make some of these commitments, it's about following through on the deal.
And Trey, if the Iranians are serious about, let's make a deal, why would the Iran state-linked media put out that very disturbing propaganda video about the president and his family yesterday?
It's interesting. The Iranians say they want to make a deal, and they still threaten the life of President Trump, his family, and top cabinet officials. They also launch missiles at the countries they claim to be their allies in the Gulf, and then talk about things like death to America and death to Israel. And so, again, this is going to be about a verifiable agreement, and an agreement that will actually be adhered to by the Iranian regime. And one of the challenges here for the Trump administration is the negotiators that they're dealing with. You have some of these relatively more moderate voices, like Mohammad Khalibaf, the country's parliament speaker, and Abbas Arghachi, the country's foreign minister. And while they can say one thing at the negotiating table, you could have these top IRGC officials who want to continue the war against the United States and demand control of over the Strait of Hormuz. And again, I think this speaks to why the U.S. military is continuing their buildup across the region, and why the president, just as recently as yesterday, said he is open to strong military action if a deal isn't reached. And so these will be tense days ahead, and the United States is preparing both on offense and on defense if these new negotiations collapse.
Trey, the Prime Minister is reporting that there are satellite images and intelligence reports indicating that Iran is actively constructing or fortifying Pickaxe Mountain. There are reports of ongoing excavation, construction vehicles entering and exiting tunnels, paving a new access road. I know these tunnels are built 300, 400 feet under this granite mountain. How will America, or how should we respond to this?
Look, there are a variety of options on the table militarily for President Trump to deal with Iran's nuclear program. But he's been very clear Iran will never have a path to a nuclear weapon. And there are two choices for the Iranians, the military choice and the diplomatic choice. And at this moment, it appears the president is giving diplomacy time to work here. But there are military options that include bunker buster bombs toward the entrances of these facilities. Additionally, there have been discussions about the possibility of special forces going into Iran and securing these facilities and actually removing any of the highly enriched uranium or centrifuges that may be hidden there. And so these days will be critical for the president. These are very consequential decisions because ultimately, if a military operation is ordered, the president understands it's not going to be at no cost. And when we spoke with the president at the White House earlier this month, he indicated to Fox News that he understands that cost. And that is part of the reason that the president is exploring these diplomatic options to ensure that every single opportunity and question has been answered before he moves forward with a broader campaign.
Well, Trey, you spoke to the president earlier this month. We're going to actually talk live to the president. He's going to join us in the 8 o'clock hour of Fox and Friends.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.